I want to talk about some famous child leaders, like King Tut. Heard of King Tut? Do you know the song? Now, when he was a young man, you never thought he'd see. Come on, with you. People stand in line to see the boy king. Steve Martin's song, but his tomb, King Tut's, he was an inconsequential ruler, pretty much, but his tomb was discovered in the 1920s, and then he became famous, and now King Tut is all over the museums and everything. There's a famous child leader for one reason. There is another famous child leader, more recent. Pu Yi was the last emperor of China. And then the dynasty ended, and Pu Yi ended up being a gardener in his elder years. In the Old Testament, you have two kings, Kings Joash and Josiah. Joash, from 2 Kings 11 and 12, became the king at age 7, and his servants killed him when he was 30. Josiah is from 2 Kings 22 and 23, and he became king when he was 8. He had a pretty good go at it. Here's how he was described. Before him, there was no king like him, who turned to the Lord with all his heart, with all his soul, with all his might. Remember those kind of phrases like that? According to the law of Moses, nor did any like him arise after him. Now, Josiah was killed by the Egyptian pharaoh Necho when he was 39 years old. Some famous child leaders. There are stories of child leaders throughout history, most often, if not always, associated with people who became leaders through a family line, a young age because a parent or an uncle or an aunt or something died. But you can also find famous child leaders in movies. The most famous set of child leaders in movies is The Goonies. Yes? Mikey, Chunk, Data, Andy, Mouth, Steph, Brand, they're the heroes. And I have heard, not for sure, but I have heard that there's a sequel in the works, Goonies 2, 35 years later. Then there's that kid, Kevin, from Home Alone. He's now in his 40s, and every once in a while comes out of hiding to do a thing, but Kevin single-handedly foiled the attempt of the burglars on his house. And then, now when I was growing up, there was one version of the movie, and then there was another one maybe 15 years ago, but Charlie Bucket is the hero of either Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Then, of course, we've got Harry, Hermione, Ron. They're the child heroes of what? Harry Potter, yes. Katniss is the hero from where? Hunger Games, yes. Rey is the Star Wars, the last Skywalker, or the Rise of Skywalker hero. And then, of course, in the zeitgeist right now, the Stranger Things characters. All the kids are older now, but in 2016 they started as 11 and 12-year-olds, so it's children or young adults that are the heroes for the most part in Stranger Things. Any Stranger Things watchers? You going to be watching Stranger Things on Christmas Day and New Year's Day? Going to the theater, too, for New Year's Day? No, or New Year's Eve, I guess it is. I'm sure we could find plenty of child leaders from movies and television over the years, like the whole Brady Bunch. Maybe, I don't know. But we may have been in awe of them. We may have laughed with them. But usually, we think that in the real world, children don't rise up as leaders. And it's too bad that we've been mostly programmed to think that, because we have Malala Yousafzai. She was the winner of the 2014 Nobel Peace Prize. Greta Thunberg, the Swedish environmental activist on climate change, as well as an activist for the end of genocide in Palestine. There's another, Marley Dias. I don't know if you've heard of her, but Marley Dias is 20 years old now, but when she was 12, she started a campaign to help improve diversity in children's literature. And she started this thing called the 100 Black Girl Book Campaign. And now she wanted there to be at least 1,000 of those books, and she's recognized 13,000 books and counting. There's Autumn Peltier. I can't even say this name, but she's from Anishinaabe, from the Anishinaabe indigenous tribe. She's a rights advocate focusing on indigenous water rights. almost all of the journalists who have been killed in Gaza in the last 3 years were under 30 years old, some as young as 8. And then in this week's reading, for the second week of Advent, we've got some of these upside-down ideas of kids and leading surrounding again. There's some familiar passages and images from a reading a few weeks ago in Isaiah 65 about animals that don't spend lots of time together becoming buddies. And this time, another idea gets added to that. It says, a little child shall lead them. We hear the phrase, a little child, and then we think about Jesus, even though it's Isaiah. And if anything gentle and kind reminds us of Jesus, I think it's great. But I'm not so sure that the image of Jesus in a manger is intended in this passage here. The notion of a child leading, as upside down as that seems, it's intended. And there's more to the passage. A shoot shall come out of the stump of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. When we see that, we've heard that in Advent readings before, but the verses right before it explain it a little bit. It says, look, the sovereign, the Lord of hosts, will lop the boughs with terrifying power. The tallest trees will be cut down, and the lofty will be brought low. He will hack down the thickets of the forest with an axe, and Lebanon with its majestic trees will fall. And then, from one of those stumps, a brand new branch will grow. The people who wrote about Jesus' birth remembered these verses. They showed how Jesus' earthly ancestry came through Jesse, through King David, who may have been the one who this verse originally applied to. Jesus becomes the ultimate David, the ultimate anointed one, because David was known as the anointed one as well. And then there's still more. His delight shall be in the fear of the Lord. He shall not judge by what his eyes see or decide by what his ears hear. But with righteousness he shall judge the poor and decide with equity for the meek of the earth. He shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he shall kill the wicked. So this coming anointed one, or the anointed one there, but his words, not his sword, are enough to wipe out the wicked. He'll strike with his mouth. His breath will kill the wicked. Words instead of weapons. And then there's the unlikely pairing of animals, the wolf and the lamb, the leopard and the goat, the lion and the calf, the bear and the cow, a snake and a baby? Really? Everything's out of order. What everyone thought was the way things are isn't. Peace instead of war. Nature not doing what is natural. And a little child leading the whole thing. This is what Advent is about, anticipating the coming of the one who changes what is. Because what is for today? And what's happening as we hope along the way? There's violence, there's war, there's genocide, there's poverty, there's disease, anger, deception, racism, bigotry, selfishness, greed, hypocrisy, hate, self-importance, self-righteousness, rejection. And today's reading reminds us of the hope for a new way of being and thinking and living, helpfulness, peace, prosperity, health, kindness, acceptance, sharing, generosity, humility, acceptance, welcome. So today's reading is an invitation for more getting ready, looking forward to what God is doing and what can be in the world. So can we look forward and prepare to celebrate with hope? Or will we continue to laugh at what seems absurd? Can we look forward and prepare to celebrate a just peace? Or will we continue to laugh at what seems absurd? Next week, Can we look forward and prepare to celebrate with joy? Or will we continue to laugh at what seems absurd? And then the week after that, can we look forward and prepare to celebrate with love? Or will we continue to laugh at what seems absurd? Hope coming from destruction. A just peace coming from destruction. Joy coming from destruction. Love coming from destruction. Unlikely allies. And all of it being led by the little child. The child of promise. The child of peace. Amen.